Hi, thanks for watching this video. I want to use this video to introduce to you some of the basic techniques that you can perform and work with using your new graphing calculator. I'm showing you a list of things that hopefully you'll be able to end this video knowing how to do. We want you to know how to turn the calculator on and off, obviously. I want to show you how to use it as a basic scientific calculator or as one of the 4-function calculators. But we also want to show you some of what this calculator does specially for you. We especially want to show you the equation list, the tables, and the graph window and how to use that. So here's kind of a split screen view of your calculator. Obviously your calculator doesn't look like this. I've shown you kind of a zoomed in version of what your calculator screen would look like on the left side here. And then here hopefully you can see on the right side the button interface for your calculator. To turn the calculator on, it's actually pretty easy to do. Just hit the on button. Didn't want to be like too terribly obvious here. But there, the calculator's on. If you want to turn, you'll know it's on because you'll see the flashing cursor. Wherever your last line ended, I cleared the screen before I showed this to you. If you ever want to turn the calculator off, which by the way is a good idea since the batteries will drain if you don't, you can just hit the blue button. It's blue on my calculator, it may be a different color on yours. The second button. You're going to have a lot of functions on this calculator just like on a scientific calculator that you've probably had before that are accessible once you hit the second first. Here anything that's in blue above the button would give you that command. So now that I hit second, the on key now means off. So pressing that will turn the calculator off. So there's on and off. Let me turn it back on for what we're going to show you here. To just simply perform a basic calculator function, you can probably figure that out pretty quickly on your own. It's very much like the old original interface for the 4-function calculator or the scientific calculator. If you want to add a couple of numbers together, all you have to do is simply input that 13 plus 85, and here's enter right here. You hit enter and it will on the next line give you the sum of those two numbers. And obviously it will add, it will subtract, it will multiply and divide, those 4 basic functions for you. Just like on the scientific calculator, it will do some complex order of operation things for you. If you want to take 81 and multiply it by, let's put some parentheses here, the left and right parentheses. Let's do 12 plus 9. And then I'll make sure I close that with the right parenthesis here. Now you know order of operations well enough to know that in this expression they will add the 12 and 9 first, and the result on the next line should be whatever 81 times 21 is. And indeed it is 1701. If you know well enough that if you don't group that correctly, your calculator will do exactly what you tell it to do. You have to be careful with order of operations here. If you enter this expression, the calculator is going to do what it's supposed to do. It's going to multiply 81 times 12 first, and then it's going to add 9, and you'll get a different result. So be mindful that order of operations still matters with this calculator. Let me hit this button here to clear the screen. You can do that anytime that there's old lines of calculations that you don't want or need on the screen anymore. I do want to make note to you one important thing here, and that's the difference between this key here, which is the subtraction key, and this key here, which is the negative key. You have to use it in the appropriate sense, and this calculator will not allow you to interchange them. If I want to take 5 and subtract 2, I got to use the subtraction key, and if I hit enter, it'll give me the right outcome. If I, instead of using the subtraction key, use the negative key, I know we treat them similarly, and they even look kind of similar, but you can see if you look close enough a difference between subtraction and the negative key. It's going to give me an error, a syntax error. Whenever you see an error on the calculator, you have a couple of options. You can choose option 1, which is to quit, or 2, which is usually what I do. I want to see what happened, and they will take you right to the problem. The cursor there says, hey, you messed up. You didn't use the subtraction key, you used the negative key. Okay. So let's say you wanted to do something a little more complex Say you want to know what the absolute value of negative 16 was, and I know that you know that pretty easily, but there are other math functions that aren't available as buttons on the calculator here. Under this menu right here that says Math, if you press that, you'll have a variety of options open up. Whenever you see a menu like this on your calculator, the up and down buttons will scroll you through the options in each list. So if I were to hit up or down here, there's a fraction and a decimal option. There's the something cubed function. There's the cube root as item number 4. You can pick any root you want using this option. 6 and 7 we will definitely talk a little bit about later on in the course. 8 and 9 are most definitely calculus options. This last one, that 0, is an interesting feature, a solver, which we can talk about too. But to get to some more other options in this menu, left and right will get you to this next submenu, this number submenu. And there are other ones here too that we can talk about. But let me go back to that number submenu because that's where the absolute value we were looking for is found. It's ABS, it stands for absolute value, and any function that you want to use on the calculator, once you've chosen it, you can either hit the appropriate button that goes with that option, this is option number 1, or you can just simply hit enter. I usually hit enter. And so now it's set up to find me an absolute value. If I want to know what the absolute value of negative 16 is, I'll just key in negative 16. You don't have to close the parentheses here in this case, but I do it out of habit. I feel a little wrong not, and when I hit enter, it provides that outcome. So a good thing for you to do with some of your time here is to maybe just look at that math menu and see what all truly is offered there. Maybe you can figure out what some of those functions do just by playing with it a little bit. Probably the reason that you have this calculator is that you want to be able to quickly graph and work with equations and their graphs. And that's one of the strongest features that this calculator has. Anytime you want to graph an equation, your first step usually is going to be to go up to the very top here. There are 5 buttons right underneath the screen. And this is the one that you're going to seek most often. It says y equals. So if you press that, you will see a large prompt on your screen that allows you to enter a lot of equations with y as the dependent variable. We're used to working with, from algebra class, linear things. Let me just pick a simple linear equation and we'll work with it and graph it. Let me choose y equals 2x plus 1. To input this, all you simply need to do is type in 2. Now for x, I know that there are some letter options. On my calculator it's in green. Here's the X right here above the store button, and to get to those you could hit the alpha button. On my calculator it's green, and then choose that letter, but it's much simpler to hit this button here. This is the variable button. This button will give you a variety of variables appropriate to the type of equation you're graphing, which may not mean a lot to you now, but as we go through pre-calculus I hope you'll understand the purpose and use for each one of these variables. Since we're graphing equations where x is the independent variable, when I hit this button it will just give me x as the input. You see it there on the screen. 2x plus 1 was our equation, so I'll enter it, and now I've got the equation that we're working with, y equals 2x plus 1. If I want to see what the graph of that looks like, the button over here to the top very right that says graph, if I hit that it will show me the graph of y equals 2x plus 1. And I hope that you know to be able to look on that graph. This is the xy plane, this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis. It orients the positive directions as they usually are. And the default scale for your calculator is to show a window that shows from negative 10 to positive 10 in both the x and y directions. And if you want to change that, we'll show that in just a minute. There is a way to change that. That looks like that's about right. That does in fact have the y-intercept of 1 that we expected. It looks like that if we go over 1 unit we go up about 2, so the slope would be positive 2. That is very much that equation. Let's say you wanted to look at that in a slightly different window. Let's say you don't want negative 10 to 10 in both the x and y directions. There's a way to deal with that too, and it's by looking at this button here that says window. So if we press that, we have now options by which we can change the window that we're shown on the graph button. So this simply gives me the choice. What do you want your smallest x value to be for x minimum? Maybe if I want to look at this in a smaller window, maybe I only want to look at this from negative 5 to 5 in both directions. So I can, with the calculator keypad, type in what I want the minimum value to be. I can either hit enter or I can hit down. Either one will get me to the next option. This now says what do you want the biggest x value to be, x maximum. So I'll change that to maybe 5. This next option here, x scale. How far apart do you want each tick mark to be? I usually leave that at 1, but not in all cases. I'll probably leave that alone here. Okay. Let me go ahead and change the y settings from negative 5 to 5 as well. And then now I think we're ready to look and see if we have the graph shown in a slightly smaller window. Let me hit graph again. And sure enough, there's the same equation graph, but in a smaller window. Only the window from negative 5 to 5 is shown here. In both the x and y directions, we've still got the expected y-intercept of 1. We've still got the expected slope of positive 2. So you can change that window to be whatever you want it to be. Now suppose you want to look at information from that equation in a slightly different way. There's also an option that will allow you to look at an XY table for the equation. This was the method, by creating one of these tables, is the method by which you first graphed a lot of the functions that you've graphed in your algebra careers. This calculator will create that for you. Whatever you have placed on that equation list, that we got from up here at y equals, we can look at an XY table by hitting second here, and then the graph button. See where it says table there? If I hit that, now I have an XY table that I can look at for that equation. So in the equation y equals 2x plus 1, when x is 0, y is 1. And just to pick a different example, for y equals 2x plus 1, when x is 5, y would be 2 times 5 plus 1, which is 11. If you want to look at other x values here, you can simply use the up and down buttons to look at different x values and their according y values, and so forth. There may be a few times when you don't want to look at the table where the step from one x value to the next one is 1, which is the default value. And if you want to change that, you can hit second and then the window button, which is a table setting feature. This will allow you to decide which x value shows up first on the table. That's the table start value. Maybe I want to start this at 0 instead of at 1. I can choose to do that. And if I want to change what the increment between each x value is, that's this delta table value. If I hit the down button to get down to it. Maybe I want to look at what happens every time x increases by 5. I can choose to do that. So now if I hit second and the table option, which is above graph, now I'm looking at a table that starts at 0, and the x increment is that x increases by 5 every time. And I can look at the according y values as well. Well, I know that was a lot of information to throw at you for the very first video here. What I want to tell you is don't be intimidated by your calculator. Play with it. You can't mess it up or make a mistake with it. You're going to learn a lot more of the functionality of the calculator as this year goes on, and I'm always available to help out or to answer any questions you have. Thanks for watching.